Whether the team is giving us the highest of highs or the bluest of blues, we'll cover it all here on Commanders Nightly News. I, of course, am your host, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Let's get to tonight's lead story. We have a trade. But before we get to that, we start today's show with a bit of somber news. Head coach Ron Rivera's mother, Dolores, passed away yesterday. Remember, if you can recall, Ron missed 2 days last week. One of those days was Wednesday, where Jack Del Rio actually sat in. Not necessarily as the acting head coach, but he was the one that handled the Ron Rivera responsibility on Wednesday of addressing the media. And we were wondering what was going on, and he came back, and we then later found out that he went home to sit with his mother, I guess in looking back now, was him kind of having an opportunity to say goodbye in person, because when he came back, he said he felt good about the plan that they had in place for his mother. And so I think he knew that this was imminent, that the end was near for his mom. And you can never really prepare for death. You can mentally think you are prepared, but there's no really preparing yourself for the loss of a loved one. Even if mentally you've started to make those reservations in your mind, it's still impossible to actually deal with death until it happens. And so, my heart goes out to him and his family. Prayers up, blessings hopefully rain down on his family during this trying time. And this isn't necessarily something that I need to say now. I could wait till later on in the week to say this, because it may not really be the appropriate time for this. But I'll just tell you this. This will be emotional gasoline for the team this week. Okay? If you want to put a positive spin on this, there's no positive spin to a death like this. Okay? But if you want to turn this into a positive, this is emotional gasoline for the fellas. Because there's nothing more rewarding than after this game having Jonathan Allen or Terry McLaurin say, after Ron has said his piece and he's ready to have somebody break the team down, and somebody says, hold on, Coach Rivera, you had a tough week, you lost your mom, this game ball's for you and your mom. And the crowd and the locker room erupts, and Ron starts to break down. Tell me you can't see that, you can't visualize that in your mind. This is emotional gasoline. The big man upstairs has handed us the can. What are we going to do with it? We'll see. But I hope Ron and his family take all the time that they need. I won't be shocked if we don't hear from Ron until Thursday or Friday of this week. Frankly, football takes a backseat to any time something like this occurs. So now to the business of William Jackson III being traded. Look, I told you guys about a month ago that this dude was done in Washington. Ron told us when he got here, I'm a straight shooter. I wear my emotions on my sleeve, and I'm very transparent. And he's really been that since day one. Don't always agree with his methods. Don't always agree with things that he says or does. But one thing he's done is he's been consistent in his messaging. He's been consistent in how he's conveyed messages, which I think is more telling than the consistency in his message. I think sometimes his messages can be a bit confusing, i.e. the whole quarterback comment he made a couple of weeks ago. So I don't want to necessarily focus on the consistency of his messaging, but the way that it's delivered, the delivery of his messages rather, is very consistent, and they tell the story with Ron Rivera. And so when Ron's excited about a guy, he gets that shit-eating grin on his face, right? And he can't wait till you stop asking the question so that he can start talking and answering your question, right? When he's excited about a guy. And when he's not excited about a guy, you might get a one sentence answer. It may be 4 or 5 words, and he'll give you some status stock answer, and then he'll keep it pushing. And you know that, okay, there's a little bit of something extra there, right? So when we were talking about William Jackson III, and he kept getting asked about William Jackson III and would he be back? And if Ron is, remember, I talked about how Ron treated Trey Turner versus treating William Jackson III. Two very similar situations, two very different handlings of the situations, right? All right. You had Trey Turner injured and not playing well, not performing at the level that we were hoping he would when he first was acquired. And Ron went out of his way to talk about how he sat Trey down and he explained to him what he was doing and told him to, get healthy and we'll need you later on in the season. And he went out of his way to explain that to the media, right? Same thing with William Jackson III. Not playing the way that we wanted him to play this year, not the way that we expected him to, dealing with an injury. And Ron essentially said, we'll see on him. Like, just kind of shoot that question away. We'll see. I don't really know. We'll see. So that told me all I needed to know. And I told you guys, once the rumor came out that William Jackson III demanded a trade, and then he kind of walked it back to William Jackson III. The media got a hold of it. They went to his locker, and he said, look, I don't know where they're getting this stuff from. That was damage control. His representative probably said, bro, the way you get out of Washington is you play this shit cool. You don't want to become a distraction. You might scare other teams off, and then you don't do Washington any favors by making the market for your services shrink. So the best thing you can do is just keep your mouth shut, let the system and process work itself out, and eventually you'll get what you want, which is out of Washington. So he backtracked. Washington stayed mum on the situation, which is a far cry from what they used to do. Because usually we do things the absolute worst way possible. We'll trash a guy while we're still trying to trade him, which absolutely makes no sense. But that's this kind of stupidity that used to exist in this organization. We haven't had that kind of ridiculousness here, it seems like, in a while. But remember, they did the same thing to Dwayne Haskins. They trashed him when they were looking to trade him, and it really tanked his value, right? And that was still Ron and this group. Not everybody was here for that, but, Ron was a part of that. So I can't just say it hasn't happened since Ron has been here. But it's less likely to happen with this group than the last regime or the regime before that. So let's look at the specifics of this deal. So this is the press release put out by the Commanders. The Washington Commanders announced that they have traded cornerback William Jackson III to the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Commanders will receive a conditional 6th-round pick in the 2025 NFL Draft in exchange for Jackson and a conditional 7th-round pick in the 2025 NFL Draft. So both transactions are pending a physical. I can't stress that last part of that statement enough. I'll read it one more time. Both transactions are pending physicals, okay? So understand that this is a guy that's been dealing with a back issue. He's going to have to pass a physical in order for this trade to go down. Now, I need you to also understand this, because somebody on socials was like, hey, we didn't get nothing for him. We didn't really get anything. So what difference does it make? And I'm like, think less about compensation. Think more about getting from underneath that contract, okay? Now, I really think they would have had an exit ramp after this season anyway, and they could have gotten out, but they wanted him gone. They didn't even want him on the roster anymore. So if they can free up a little bit of cap space for this year, which is the remaining like $2.7 million or whatever it was that they had to pay him this year, you get from underneath that, they're going to free up about roughly, $10 million next year. So a combined like $12 million they're going to free up. There's dead cap money there, which is fine. But at the end of the day, you move on from a guy that it didn't work. And this to me was a total failure on the part of this organization. Now, to me, there's 3 types of coaches that exist. Okay. there's the coach. So number one, there's the coach that has a scheme, and every player must adhere to his scheme. So really, that coach should be going out and specifically looking for players that fit his scheme. Don't go get guys that don't fit your scheme, okay? Doesn't make any sense because you're not going to alter your scheme to adjust to that player's strengths. That's not what you're looking to do. You want guys to play within you want guys to play within the scheme that you have set, okay? So don't go out and get guys that don't fit. Okay, so you have scheme-based coaches. Then number two are coaches that adjust to the talents of their players. Okay, these are the guys that say, hey, give me the most talented players you can find and I'll make it work. I don't know how, but I'll make it work. I'll figure it out. Just give me these guys and I'll figure out what they do best and we'll do that. Okay, and then number three is the coach that can do both. Okay, he's got a scheme, but he can adjust also when necessary to the talent that he has. Hey, this is my philosophy. This is what I want to do. But if I got guys that don't necessarily fit into that, here's what we're going to do. We're going to scrap that and we're going to go with this for this week. And we're going to go with this. And if this is what works, we're going to go with this. I.e. Nick Sirianni. He came in and he thought he was going to run his little scheme with the Eagles, with Jalen Hurts at quarterback. And he quickly realized this shit isn't going to work, okay? What did he do? He adjusted his play calling and his philosophy to fit the talent that was on the roster. You've seen what the Eagles have done since. So he's more of number two, right? We are a number one organization. We don't fit our scheme around players' skill set. You have to adjust and adapt to the scheme. We see it with Scott Turner's offense, which pisses us off to no end. We see it with Jack Del Rio's defense, which is very frustrating. But I blame Ron Rivera, Jack Del Rio, Martin Mayhew, Marty Herney. I blame all of the brain trust that decided that this move was the right move to make because they knew what William Jackson III. This wasn't a surprise. He didn't get here and spring something brand new on us. And for those of you who think William Jackson III just stinks and can't play corner, you're sadly mistaken, okay? It's just like Josh Norman. Josh Norman wasn't garbage before he got here, and he wasn't garbage after he left here. He was just garbage while he was here. And if you recall, it was the first year he was actually really good for us. And it was every year after that he was here, he was terrible. But he didn't forget how to play football here. We just didn't utilize him correctly. You know? It's the same thing with William Jackson III. I guarantee you he will play better in Pittsburgh and he will look like a brand new corner. Why? Because he's going to be in a position where they're going to allow him to do the things that he does well. Understand that William Jackson III was never out of position. A lot of his penalties came from him panicking, okay? You know, in trail technique, but right there where he needed to be. These weren't penalties where he was like Kendall Fuller is getting cooked. Guys are 3-4 steps behind Kendall Fuller. It's not close. William Jackson III wasn't cooked on these plays. He's right there. He's panicking. That's a loss of confidence. When you start to panic when you're in great position. That's not a athleticism or lacking in the ability to make things happen. That's just pure sense of not having the confidence that you normally have, lacking in that confidence department. He lost confidence here in Washington. All right. Why? Because they had him doing things he wasn't comfortable doing. The man came here as a pure man-to-man cover corner. And if you weren't going to use him in that capacity, then you were wasting time, money, resources, and effort. Anybody could see that clearly. And so my thought process when they signed him was, oh, Jack must want to play much more man coverage because we were strictly a zone coverage team in Jack's first season in 2020. when the defense was really good, albeit against bad quarterbacks and bad football teams, we played a ton of zone coverage. And it was very successful. But we couldn't blitz a lot. And so the prevailing thought was, hey, they must want to play a little bit more man-to-man so that they can blitz and be more aggressive. They don't think they can do that because they don't have the horses outside. So you go get a William Jackson III, and that gives you more flexibility. Now you can play man-to-man on the outsides, and you should be able to blitz a little bit more frequently. But that's not what they did. They brought the man here, and they told him, we need you to play zone. I'm a man corner. Well, we need you to play zone. I don't know what you thought the outcome of this was going to be, but it was exactly what I thought it was going to be when we tried to fit a square peg into a round hole. He played terribly for the first 8-9 weeks last year, came back after the bye week, and started to play better. But he reverted back to his old ways at the start of the season, and he really was never good this year. So, unfortunately, it didn't work here. I wish him nothing but the best. I hope he passes that physical like hell, because at the end of the day, it's not about the compensation. I've already told you, it's minimal compensation. Hell, those are picks in 2025. Like, that's some NBA shit. You know, we're not even talking about the draft this year coming up or the next year's draft. We're talking about 3 drafts from now. So this is such an insignificant trade in the grand scheme of things that it's not even funny. It's almost not even worth talking about. The only thing that is important here is that we're trying to get from underneath this contract. Free up a bit of cap space. You may be able to do something with that. So it's a big move, because in past years, we would have had to release him, because the report came out that if we didn't find a tradable partner, we're going to have to release him. Because I told you guys a month ago, he's played his last snap in Washington. The way Ron was talking about him, they were done with him. You could tell. So I'm glad this has found resolution. We didn't need any bad apples in the locker room. No one disgruntled in the locker room, because this locker room is a tight-knit group. You heard Taylor Heinicke talk about this is the best locker room he's ever been a part of. He loves playing for this team, loves playing with these guys and playing for them. And you didn't need anybody kind of going against the grain, which is what William Jackson III effectively would have been doing. So you get him out of here, and you give him a chance to start anew. We'll see what happens. And wish him nothing but the best. As I said, I expect him to play better in Pittsburgh, because they're going to allow him to play man-to-man, which is what he's built to do. And we're going to continue on with the trio of Benjamin St-Juste, Kendall Fuller, and Rashad Wildgoose. All we can do is cross our fingers and hope that it doesn't get us killed the remainder of the season. I don't have a ton of hope, especially coming up this week against a bona fide number 1 wide receiver in Justin Jefferson coming into town. He's got to be licking his chops going up against our secondary. The only hope we have is that we are able to get to Kirk Cousins, stop the run, get to Kirk Cousins, and affect him. But it's not looking too good. I'm not going to lie to you. But we will see. Speaking of which, in other news, the Vikings did trade for TJ Hockenson, so we'll be playing against him for a second time this season. But much like we saw with Christian McCaffrey, who was traded, and actually McCaffrey was traded on a Thursday, and I think he played on a Sunday. You're going to see, and I think he played maybe 9-10 snaps. There's only so much TJ Hockenson can actually do in that small time frame, right? Like, there's only so much of the playbook he can retain. There's only so much he can do. So I'm not expecting him to have a massive impact in the game against us. You know, like I said, there's only so much they can throw at him in such a short period of time. He'll be out on the football field, and he'll get some reps and some snaps against us, but they'll be few and far between. Again, I'm not expecting him to play a whole hell of a lot, because, again, there's only so much he can know. So I'm not too concerned with him being added to that Vikings roster for this game. Now, if we were to see the Vikings down the road in the playoffs per se, then he'd be much more of a problem then. But I digress. Enough of them. Let's talk about us. And I want to give a update on Chase Young, and I'll do that a little bit later on. I want to start by saying something that needs to be said, because I've been on socials looking around. You know, when you're under the weather and you've got a little bit more time on your hands, you got to find ways to waste that time. I prefer not to waste my time on socials, but you know, when you're soothing and comforting babies, and you know, you don't have a lot of different options available to you. So I found myself perusing socials on my mobile device. And one of the things I continuously ran into was Washington fans bitching and complaining about not getting any respect. And what I'm here to tell you is, don't look for any. And honestly, we don't deserve any, okay? You dug yourself this 1-4 hole. You've dug yourself out of this 1-4 hole. But guess what? The job is not done. You haven't done it in impressive fashion. You know, power rankings are a beauty contest, okay? Wins and losses are not, okay? Understand that. Wins and losses in this league, you don't get any style points for those. Either you win or you lose. Doesn't matter if it's pretty or it's the most gorgeous thing you've ever seen. It's either a win or a loss. It's cut and dry, black and white. Power rankings, however, very much a gray area. Probably more gray than there are black or white. The gray area is huge because it's opinion based. So style points come into play. So when you've won 3 in a row, again, over the likes of Chicago, not a team over 500, Green Bay, another bad football team, not over 500, and the Indianapolis Colts, another bad team, not over 500, and you've won those games by combined 8 points, no one's looking to go out of their way to give you respect. So don't look for any. And don't play the "we're Washington, we never get respect" card, because this is universal around the league. If we don't respect your quarterback, if we don't respect any one part of your team, and when I'm talking about part, I'm not talking about the defensive line. I'm talking about your entire defense, your entire offense. We got to be talking about an entire unit. All right. If we don't respect an entire unit of yours, then we're not, and you don't have a quarterback, then we're not going to give you the respect that you're looking for, i.e. the Giants. Okay. The Giants were 4-1, still an underdog. They were 5-1, still an underdog. They were 6-1, still an underdog. Okay. In games that they played this season. So they weren't getting respect either. Okay. And it's for the same reason that we're not getting any respect. And I've seen us in power rankings as low as 17, or I guess I should say as high as 17. I've seen us as low as 25, which is hard for me to actually fathom, because I looked at that, and that's the one on NFL.com, which I just had to dismiss altogether. I'm like, you guys are a joke, because they had teams like the Packers and the Bears. These are teams we beat, by the way, ahead of us on this list. And I'm just wondering, how is that even possible that we're at 500, these teams are under 500, and we beat them, and you find it okay to put them ahead of us? But that's nor here nor there. I'm not here to bitch and complain about that. What I'm here to tell you is, don't look for respect. You want it, we got to take it. And this is the week where you're going to get respect if you're serious about taking respect or earning respect. This is the week that you got to go out and get it against a 6-1 Minnesota Vikings team that's damn good. Like, I thought Ron Rivera put it very succinctly. They're under the radar as you can be, and they're 6-1, and it doesn't make any sense. Nobody's talking about the Minnesota Vikings. I don't know how, I don't know why, but that's a good football team. And if we can find a way to beat them, they've got nothing other to do than respect us. They can't bypass us disregard this win streak, which would then be at 4 games, disregard the wins on the win streak, because now we beat the team with the second best record in the NFC. We just beat them. You have to give us our respect. You have no choice. But again, that comes later on in the week. We don't have to talk about that game now. We'll start to really turn our attention to Minnesota tomorrow. But, that's just something that I felt like I needed to say. Chase Young. Word out on the street from my sources and people that I'm talking to is he's not going to play this week. It looks like they're going to go that TJ, and I brought this up to you guys last week, the TJ Watt method of you start the clock, and obviously how he feels will determine how this process goes. But I think in their minds, they're circling the Eagles game on a Monday night. It just gives them more time, even an extra day to prepare. I think they really want to get him out there, get him back into shape, football shape. And again, there's no replicating getting into football shape. You can't do that unless you're actually playing in games. But they want to get him out there in practice. They want to simulate that in practice for him. And I don't think they're ready to put him out there the first week back in practice. I told you Ron already gave us a layout of how they plan to trying to reintegrate him into practice. And it's going to start with him starting on the side field after, taking his positional reps. Once they go to the team reps, he goes off to the side field. So I envision that the extra day of practice next week, him having a week of workload under his belt and his body responding to that the way that they hope, will give them more confidence to put him on the field week 10 versus the Philadelphia Eagles. So as excited as we were for him to potentially be back week 9, I've learned that this is a blackout game. I'm juiced and charged for that. I'm not going to lie to you. I think this is going to be a really raucous environment. I can't tell you the last time that I've seen this. Like, Heineke fever is real. I've said this already. The Heineke momentum is legit. Whether you can't stand him or you are 110% behind this guy, whatever the case may be, you're locked in. Okay? You want people to feel something. Heineke makes you feel something. Either you think he stinks or you think he's great and needs an opportunity. Either way, you're locked in. Okay? So you've got people coming to this game to see Heineke and this football team succeed. You've also got the Kirk Cousins haters who are coming hopefully to see Kirk Cousins lose. And then you've got the Kirk Cousins supporters who are coming looking to see him shit all over the franchise and say, see, you should have never gotten rid of him. Either way, it's going to be a packed stadium. And I'm hoping that there's a lot more black in the stadium than there is purple in the stadium. We'll see how it goes. But for the first blackout game, I'm expecting this to be in an electric environment. I'm expecting it to be in an electric environment. I really expect there to be a little bit of extra energy to start the game. You can't ride that wave for 4 quarters. So early in the game, you've got to take advantage of a raucous crowd. Hopefully you win the toss and the defense gets to start on the field first. So that noise that generates from the excitement of the blackout carries over to the opening kickoff, and you're able to possibly get off the field on a 3 and out and allow that energy to really fuel this team. But I can't wait to see the environment. It'll be a different look. We've never seen this at FedEx Field or any Washington Field, RFK for that matter, because black has never been a part of the uniform color scheme. So this is going to be different. I want to see how our fans handle this blackout. But I don't think Chase is playing this week. I hope I'm wrong, but I don't think I'm wrong here. I don't think he's playing this week. I think the plan is to get him ready for week 10 against Philadelphia. So we'll see. Anyway, that's it for today. You know, Washington moves on from William Jackson III pending a physical. That trade has not been finalized yet. A lot of y'all are already celebrating. Don't celebrate quite yet, okay? This is a guy that has had a number of ailments, but the back is the biggest one, and that's kept him out of the lineup for the last, you know, that and the fact that he wanted to be traded and they wanted nothing to do with him. But I think the back is a real thing, and so hopefully he passes that physical so we can move on and start anew with that whole chapter. And it's another failure by this organization. They've had some good moves. We've talked about them, but they've also had quite a bit of some mistakes, some missteps. Here's another one, acquiring William Jackson III in free agency last or 2 off seasons ago. It didn't work. It didn't work. And you got to know thyself. This is a staff that they don't do well when asking players to adapt to what they do. All right. They don't adapt well to what other players do, rather. They want players to come in and adapt. You don't need to get players that need to adapt to your scheme. You need to get players that come in already having what you want them to do being a strength. Like a guy like Marcus Peters would fit perfectly in our defense. Not the fastest corner in the world, but very zone savvy and aware, right? You would prefer much faster corners that can play both man and zone, but I'd much rather, in this scheme that we play with Jack Del Rio, I'd much rather have a smart, zone-savvy corner without top-end speed, i.e. Benjamin St-Juste, than a top-end speed, lacking in zone awareness corner like William Jackson III, who has all the physical traits, but isn't capable of playing comfortably in zone coverage consistently. So, got to know who you're targeting and how they fit in what you ultimately want to do. That was a mistake from the get-go, and they should have known better. But I digress. That's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on Commanders Nightly News. I look forward to chopping it up with you guys. And once again, condolences to Ron Rivera and his family as they deal with a very trying time and the loss of his mother, Dolores. Kiss your loved ones. You know, this wasn't a sudden death. However, you never know. You never know. Anyway. Guys, have a good one. Look forward to chopping it up with you guys tomorrow, where we start to turn our attention towards the Vikings. We'll put a seal on the Colts victory tomorrow as we transition towards the Minnesota Vikings. I'll have the film breakdown. We'll have studs and duds. That'll all be coming up within the next 24 hours. And we'll be live tomorrow night. And we'll transition into the Minnesota Vikings. So got a lot to say there. We'll get the start of the work week. We'll have an update on Chase Young. We'll have an update on Cole Holcomb. We'll have an update on Jahan Dotson. Those are just a few of the names that we'll start to have clarity on as we get the work week started. So looking forward to it. This is a big game. This is the biggest game we've had to this point of the season. And it's not even close. You know, this is a big one. Because anyone that wants to, you know, kind of write us off as fluky, not really serious, like pretty much the NFL.com is done by ranking us 25th in their power rankings, which, you know what? At the end of the day, I'm not mad at them. I'm not glad at them. But I get it. I understand. I don't, but I do. This is the week where you get to shut them up. Or you get to wake them up. They're asleep, you get to wake them up. Or you prove them right. So we'll see. But anyway, you guys, enjoy the rest of your evening. And I'll see you guys next time. Have a good one.
Here comes the diesel. Here comes the diesel. There's the snap. Hand to Riggins. Good hold. He's got the first down to the 40. He's gone. The 35, the 30, the 20. He's gone.